the case of Yamuna is not very different from the other rivers of that country. I mean, when the summer approaches, there is water scarcity. But we do see a new normal around Chhat Puja because of the frothing. And then now around the monsoon, we have had floods. So, sir, I'll start with you, Dipinerji. Why did Delhi flood? That's the question in all of our minds.
Thanks, Sukanya. And there are various reasons given or explanations given for the phenomenon which we saw on the 15th and 16th of July in Delhi. So it's just about 2 weeks since then. And some of the good analysis identifies several factors, about 6, 7 of them. And the conclusion has yet to be reached, I mean, which has been the principal factor, which could have been a contributing factor. So if we look at just the rainfall, because the first explanation given is the high rainfall in the catchment of Yamuna, which led to flooding in Delhi, which is true. The rainfall was high, but it wasn't as significant as the rainfall which we've had in, say, either 1978 or even 2010. So that is also cannot directly be attributed to the flood levels of 208.66 meters, which Yamuna reached purely on that basis. And the second could be that the rainfall this time was widespread, which is also true. But again, Delhi did not in itself receive very significant rain. On Saturday, Sunday, 10th, 11th or 11th, 12th, we had 110 and 150 mm. And adjoining areas of UP and Himachal, which is the catchment of Yamuna, there also the rainfall wasn't so high. And the third evidence is also the fact that the release of water from the Hathni Kund barrage, which is at the entry of Delhi, was much less this year. It was about 3.5 lakh cusecs of water only was released, as again compared to 1978 when 7 lakh cusecs was released. And surprisingly, even on 2013 and 2019, 8 lakh cusecs was released. So if you see in that sense also, the second factor doesn't seem to hold much water, literally speaking. And therefore, the other reasons given are that, and given by Sandra especially, are that there have been more number of bridges on Delhi, more number of barrages, and more encroachment in construction and floodplain restoration works also being done, which have disturbed the floodplain. And one of the final reasons, also the seventh reason given, is the siltage and seepage, which has happened from the water and sewage which flows from Delhi itself. So that has raised the level of the riverbed, and therefore less amount of rainfall and less amount of water released through the barrages has contributed to the increase in flooding.
That brings me to the next question. What ails Yamuna? So what are the major issues and challenges, according to you, that Yamuna's river basin is facing right now? And what are the factors that are responsible for it?
So in a way, all these 6, 7 factors are responsible. I mean, except for the rainfall, which is it's not anthropogenic, but essentially the reason given by several people who have worked on Yamuna, including the late Mr. Manoj Mishra, what was highlighted was that we are killing the river. So if there are too many barrages and if there is no flow in the river for about 8 months or 10 months in a year, then the river bed is dry for substantial part of the year, and only the sewage and siltage of Delhi and its neighboring states, because Najafgarh Nala and other drains also bring in the sewage and siltage of neighboring states in it. So this could be a factor, that the barrages, bridges, siltage and sewage, and of course the encroachment on the floodplain itself, both official as well as individual household level, as well as commercial and government encroachments, they have all restricted the floodplain into a narrow chicken neck as the river enters Delhi. Therefore, the river doesn't flow and there is a flooding behind it. So we saw substantial flooding happening at the point where the river enters Delhi and there are embankments made to protect the water from flooding the colonies and the establishments which are around that area from Wazirabad till Okhla. And that have contributed to the narrowing of the river flow and perhaps rising of the river bed. And therefore, the flood for the first time entered large parts of, say, civil lines area or near Supreme Court this time, which never happened before. So it just shows that the volume at that point, yes, one other factor was the barrages also. So it was mentioned that some barrages were stuck. So these factors probably for the first time led to a situation, even with the rainfall not being the main factor, the river levels rose highest level in history in Delhi.
Sushmita, let me loop you in here. So when the water level of the Yamuna, in Delhi reached all-time record, just like Dipinderji just said, some experts have attributed that to encroachment of the floodplain. What are your thoughts on that?
See, if you very rightly said that, the water level actually rose for different reasons, which Dipankarji actually discussed. But one of the major factors which the experts are telling is the encroachment of the flood. Now, if you look at the master plan for Delhi, there is a zonation of all these areas. And if you see, there is almost a zone called Zone O, which is like 9,600 hectares, and out of which, almost 1,600 hectares are underwater, and remaining almost around 8,000 hectares is most of the time dry. And this is the area where certain legal and illegal constructions are always taking place. Whether we talk about the famous temple there, the Commonwealth Games, the old sports complex there, or several other buildings that are actually getting constructed. Now, this is because this zone O has no definite planning. So it becomes a gray area and very easy prey for the mafia to actually encroach. So this is the reason we are forgetting, like, what are the functions of these floodplains, because these floodplains are very good for groundwater recharge. They are very good for flood retention. So we need to understand that these are the functions of these floodplains, and if we encroach that, we will face these problems again.
So how do you think other cities are grappling with the issue of urban floods, especially due to the loss of water bodies?
Yeah, so there are two parts of it. One is when we talk about the river, we are talking about the floodplains, encroachment of it. But another important part of a city is the urban water bodies. So these are always being the sponges of the cities. So they absorb the extreme storm events. So if you see across India, so every city was known for its water bodies. Whether we talk about Chennai, whether we talk about Bangalore, whether we talk about Delhi, everywhere. So whether we talk about Assam. So these water bodies, we lost these water bodies. If you see in 80s, for example, if we talk of another city, say Chennai, which is famous for its marshlands and wetlands. So if you see in the 80s, it had almost 600 water bodies. But when we came to 2000, we just had a fraction of it. 19 major water bodies, which almost went to 1,300 hectares, actually got reduced to 60%. And few
This is part
years
of the CSE study.
Yeah, this is one of the CSE studies, and we have done a good analysis of what is the relationship between urbanization and loss of water bodies. And we have seen that all the cities, like whether we talk about Mumbai, Chennai, Thiruvananthapuram, we talk about Bangalore, Delhi, Lucknow, even Assam. So wherever the urban water bodies were lost due to urbanization, say 40%, 50%, we saw several urban floods happening, like 7 times. After 2000, we counted, it was sometimes seven times the floods happened, or 10 times the flood happened. Like if you see Mumbai, almost 9 times it happened after 2000. Major floods, I'm talking about major floods, urban floods. So whenever we have done this analysis, we found that there was a good correlation that if we lose our water bodies to urbanization, we are going to face these floods.
Last question, Nipitanji. what needs to be done and what is the way forward for us?
See, I'll stick to Delhi because I think what has happened in Delhi, given its very strange occurrence, shows that what we saw this time in Delhi can become a permanent feature. Because if there are 3-4 critical factors contributing to the situation of high flood levels of 208.6 meters, which includes encroachment certainly as a major factor, but other factors may also have contributed, then unless you do something about them, it is very difficult to ensure that this doesn't repeat. Rather, it's a warning that it may repeat now more frequently. So, for example, we do need to know how much of the problem has been attributed of this high flooding has been attributed by, say, about 26 bridges which have been built, which have constrained, because when you build a bridge, you do build walls and for the bridges to connect. Barrages are there. Barrages are very old, and we should have technology which enables the barrages to be opened and a governance system. So strangely, the barrage, which 5 gates of the ITO barrage, which did not open, are under the Haryana Irrigation Department. So unless you are able to fix this technology of barrages, which can be quickly opened, and that shouldn't be very difficult, it should not happen. Finally, about sewage and siltage. One calculation which we did in CSC in our team was that if we have Delhi consumes about 1,000 million gallons per day of water, and that is what the TJB record says. So actually the consumption could be much higher. And therefore, if you also attribute the water and the wastewater which flows in Najafgarh Nala and various drains, Barapula drain, we can safely assume that about 1,000 million gallons a day actually reaches of wastewater combined with silt reaches Yamuna every day. And if you just calculate the amount of biological load in that, we estimate that about more than 300 tons per day of sewage solid waste is deposited in Yamuna. And this is just sewage solid waste. Could be a larger or a similar amount of siltage is also being deposited. So if this hypothesis that the river bed is rising, that needs to be studied and assessed. We cannot conclude based on assumptions, but these things have to be assessed. And of course, finally, the encroachment. So how much is that contributing to the flooding? So unless this is assessed first, then remedial action can be taken, whether we should do dredging to get rid of siltage, septage, whether we should think of getting rid of some of the embankments, like the outer ring roads which have come in, or, see how the bridges can be aligned in a way that the flow is not disturbed and siltage doesn't happen, because already sandbanks are also happening, which shows that a lot of siltage is happening. So those are some of the remedial actions at this stage, but I would say more assessments need to be done to identify one or more causes and then take actions on that.
Sushmita, any last words?
See, I would say that, the encroachment is a very serious issue. And the stormwater drains actually also needs to be taken care of. Like if I talk about stormwater drains, say, for example, I'm again coming back to Chennai. Chennai has like some 2,000 odd kilometers of road, whereas only 838 kilometers of stormwater drains have been built. So this is true for every city. And in this scenario of climate change, where the peak intense rainfall is also changing per hour, which is calculated in per hour, and the construction of stormwater drains that have been done is done according to the old calculation. So, this needs to be taken care of, and also the desiltation, regular desiltation, and making proper stormwater drains that actually connect to your water bodies are also very important part of this issue.
Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. We'll be back soon with another episode soon. Thank you.